Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Heart of New York show. I am so happy and thrilled to have my good friend, Maestro Joseph Lento, on today. He has been such an inspiration over our past shows and what he does in his life and the people he touches. And it's just an incredible story. Just when he tells you the things that he has experienced and how he passes it on to help everybody. I want to give you, once again, a little bit of information on my friend Joseph. He is a New York State licensed teacher of orchestral music and school district administration. Joseph had been a supervisor in the New York City Department of Education and in Westchester County. In addition to instrumental and vocal music, he's taught global studies, American history, creative writing, introduction to law, physical education, English as a second language, intro to prosthetics, and developmental psychology. In 1987, Mr. Lento co-founded Class Act, which was the first band in the history of New York City Department of Education, comprised completely of students with special needs. In 2015, Joseph founded and directed the All-Star Autism Chorus at Roosevelt High School in Yonkers, New York. In 2015, he was also a keynote speaker at the United Nations World Youth Assembly. Maestro Joseph Lento has been awarded many recognitions, many. Lehman High School Teacher of the Year in Bronx, New York. New York City Department of Education, Bronx County High Schools Teacher of the Year. 2014, proclaimed a National Teacher of Arts and Humanities by President Barack Obama. He was a recipient of the Mayoral Proclamation, Yonkers, New York. U.S. Senator Christine Gillibrand has officially recognized Joseph as a maestro. And presently he's teaching an introduction to music and developmental psychology at the prestigious Maria Regina Academy in Hartsdale, New York.
Thank you,
I'm
Peter.
telling you, it's just amazing. How are you,
I'm
Maestro?
great. It's great to see you, Angela, and everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. I always appreciate it. It's the highlight of my year, coming to see you guys and being on this show.
I tell you, every year we got to have the Maestro on. And you're going to see why. Because we have things to talk about here that are so fascinating and interesting, and what Maestro is doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about graduation, high school graduation, its history, implications, post-graduation for students.
Yeah.
Now, what I would like to know is, can you give an overview history of the graduation exercises? People are wondering tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. We thought this would be a fun and serious subject. I don't think there's anything that quite keeps us together as a society than education. And, the graduation, the commencement exercises, especially in high school, are so important. And we're going to talk about that. And as having spent the majority of my career in high schools, I've seen many students graduate. And, we're all graduates of high school, so we have a lot to share in this regard. But it's fascinating. We often might wonder, well, what about the dress and the hats and the tassels and the rings and where'd that come from? So now, while I'm not an expert on it, this is information that is easily accessible. I know a little bit about it. We can go back to medieval times around the probably 11th or 12th century. And a lot of these things really come from religious organizations, the monks and their dress with those long robes. So that's really where we can find the beginning of it. Initially, these commencement exercises were reserved for people with the highest amount of education, philosophers, physicians, those kinds of people. It didn't come into the public school settings, of course, until sometime after formal public education began in the mid-19th century. So it kind of has its roots in religion and the monks in Europe.
It's interesting. I never knew that. I never knew that. What's about all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the graduation exercise?
Well, first of all, we mentioned pomp and circumstance. The famous composer, Edward Elgar, composed that piece of music, and it's been used. It's actually a very, very long piece. We usually only hear a little bit of it. But probably in the mid-19th century, graduation exercises began to be a common thing, basically in the military. People would move from one level to another, and that's where we have a lot of those traditions grounded. We have a school here in New York City, the Trinity School, which has been in existence since 1709. 1709, and it's still in existence today.
Wow.
It's a pre-K, it's a K through 12 school, very, very well known. So we think somewhere in the mid-1800s, and I've contacted them, we would try to find out exactly when it happened, but they've been holding graduation exercises since the late 19th century, right here in New York City.
Right here.
Yeah, so the Trinity School, it's a fascinating place. So there's a lot of that history right here in New York City. This year, between 65 and 70,000 high school seniors graduated from New York City public schools, and
This year alone?
This year alone, it's usually between 60 and 70,000. After all, there's over 1.1 million students in the
Okay.
public school system. There are over 450 high schools in New York City alone. So that's a lot of pomp and circumstance, right?
Right.
Lots of parties and balloons and, the caps and the gowns. Interesting, I know we were talking a little bit before the show, and Peter, you had asked about, what's the cap and what's the cap
And that tassel,
about?
what's the
Yeah.
story behind that?
The tassels and all, again, those things kind of, when they first came about in the 12th, 13th century and so on, they were to symbolize levels of education, different colors and so on. Now, there are cords, there are tassels, but the square on the top of the hat, which was originally called a beretta, is actually a mortar board, like a craftsman would use to mix cement and so on. It's a tribute to labor. So
Really?
even though, there's academics involved, that mortar board is a tribute to laborers and the hard work that goes into any kind of study. So that's pretty cool, I think.
Sometimes at graduation, I see people with messages that they put on top of the head. You find that a lot lately?
No, I don't, but there
Right.
are, that happens in certain, there are different towns and cities where, smaller towns especially, and private colleges and so on, those kinds of traditions are, more prevalent than here in New York City. But it's a big business.
I could imagine.
it's a big
I could
business,
imagine.
yeah.
The publicity you would get from that. Now, when you take the tassel and you graduated,
Right.
they move it to one side to the
Yeah.
other. What's that all about?
That has, that significance, there is no academic significance to it. It started as a tradition. Really, if you read about these things, there's lots of folklore and stories that have been related over the years. There's no specific academic meaning originally to it, but where they had the tassels and someone decided to move because it was uncomfortable from one side to the other, and then these kinds of traditions grow out of it. So, it's like the tossing of the hats in the air. You've seen the caps get thrown up in the air.
Right.
That's a product of the U.S. Naval Academy, because they would go from, midshipman to officer. And so they would take off that cap and they put on their officer's cap. So that's where they started throwing them up in the air.
That's right. They do
It's
every year.
a tradition.
Well, when you look on stage and you're seeing the leaders of the college who are handing out they have gowns on that are like, wait a minute, you got stripes here. all over. It looks like something like right out of the royal kingdom.
Yeah,
Does that have any meaning or purpose with the amount of stripes, or they have a ribbon on, and you know what I'm
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, those stripes that you see represent levels of education. So, there have been different organizations over the years where there was an academy here in the United States of scholars. They tried to get a uniform code, but, everyone has a personality. They want to show off different things, and they're proud. You can't blame them. So, different colors for different schools mean different levels of things. S- Baccalaureate degrees, master's degrees, doctoral degrees.
Right.
And this is something now that all colleges have, but of course, according to their colors. And you see the long drapes in the back. Those are actually hoods that used to be worn because it was pretty cold in different parts of Europe. So the hoods were worn to kind of keep them warm during these ceremonies.
Right.
But they don't wear them anymore, but they do drape down the back of the person wearing it. So there's lots of significance. There are cords and tassels and different things. But actually, it's also a very, very big business, as I mentioned earlier.
It is.
It is. And schools develop their own colors. Every school has a color, and
Right.
whatever it may be. So there's tradition steeped in that also. There's a very proud tradition to commencement exercises. There's a lot of fun to it. Even the rings.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yearbooks and class rings, and the history behind it. But I remember not when I graduated college, but when I graduated high school, it was a private high school, and they had the yearbook, and it was almost like, well, you got to go around and you make sure that everybody signs it
Right.
and write something special in it, and then you get the class ring. I mean, where did all this come from?
It's fascinating. The history of the what we might call the yearbook or the autograph book. There's so many different sources. And by the way, folks could always email me or reach out to me at jslmaestro@gmail.com, and I'm willing, freely share notes and information and resources on anything we talk about.
Can you say that again?
jslmaestro@gmail.com.
Okay.
And anything that you want to see, resources, notes, and so on, I'm more than happy to share with you. So with the yearbooks, there are so many different versions and the progression. There's a whole chart. So that's something that it goes back to as early as 1600 from the research I've done. And but it's a big thing with the yearbooks. Very, very popular.
Oh, my goodness,
It's a
right, yeah.
lifelong memory. The rings is really interesting. Here's another thing that comes from our military. Believe it or not, the first people to have a ring was West Point, the cadets at West Point.
They were the first.
The first, way back, and I believe it was
Wow.
1835 or so.
Okay.
And of course, all these things by the 1940s really had found their way into mainstream public schools, rings and yearbooks and so on. Again, it's cute. You even see little kindergarten kids. Sometimes they've got the hat on and the little gown.
It's so nice to see. When I graduated from high school, it was a private school. It was a religious school, and we had a class song. Is that something that every school has at the end? I can't even. I haven't seen enough graduations to say, oh, they all gathered together to sing this last song.
That's a great question, Peter. And the answer is, to a large extent, the answer is yes.
They do. Okay.
Especially in the elementary and middle schools, they'll have a class song. They'll sing it all. They'll all sing at graduation. In high school, you'll probably have maybe the chorus or the band play a popular tune or perhaps the school's song. So yes, I'd say the majority of schools either have a school song that's performed, or the class itself, especially in middle and elementary schools, will sing for everyone there. And in the high schools, it's more the chorus or the band will perform. But again, each high school has its own traditions. That's what makes it so much fun. And that's why we have such an emotional attachment to high school. It's really, you've been with most of the people you graduate with. Most part, you've been with them since elementary school. It's not always the case, but to a large degree, especially here in New York City and smaller communities, it is.
And you were mentioning about the chronological chart on how the school yearbook has evolved. And I'm saying this is fascinating. All the way back from the 1600s,
Yeah.
they had that.
Yeah, and it's all available. It's really fascinating things that I'm more than happy to share with you. And
Yeah, people would love to hear. I mean, I never knew the history of
Yeah.
graduation.
Yeah, I know. When I was assistant principal in New York City, and even before that,
Right.
as a band director, I was intricately involved in graduation. Because you have to coordinate the music. The graduates have to walk in. And when I was an assistant principal in Yonkers, New York, I was an 8th grade assistant principal, and I had to coordinate graduation. So there's a lot that goes to it.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of details, and you want everyone to be happy. It's an important time for people to celebrate and move on. It's a great accomplishment.
That's the responsibility, because he said, in a situation like this, everybody's got to be happy.
You want everyone to be happy. Sure, it's
I mean,
it
it's almost
means a lot.
Yeah, it's like a wedding. It's that special and big.
It
Everyone's
is.
got to be happy.
And we have to remember that every family is celebrating. When everyone leaves the auditorium, those families are going off and having celebrations, whether it's, a quiet something in their kitchen or maybe something at a restaurant or something more elaborate. It's still special. So you want everyone to be happy. You want to make sure everything is right. You want to make sure that the speakers are, addressing the school and in terms of a theme that reflects the school's philosophy and right down to the music. It's important. Graduation is a big deal.
It certainly is. And so,
I
are
think-
yearbooks basically the same now? Has it reached like a plateau over the centuries where they are similar?
I think if we look around, we can see that most yearbooks are similar. They have, pictures of all the graduates. They have candidates of the graduates, senior class during the year, and, different messages and so on written in them. So I think they've reached basically they're on the same level.
Same, right, okay.
I would think so.
Pictures, what they did, the accomplishments, and
Yeah.
pictures of the basketball team, the football team, and the captains, and all that.
All that, yes, yeah. I know at the high school I'm at, Maria Regina High School in Hartsdale.
And the faculty, the maestro.
But right, the faculty's in there. They do a beautiful job. There's always a yearbook committee with teachers and students. So it's, again, this whole, especially in high school, this culmination, this commencement of academic studies for 12 years is so important. And Peter and I, in the beginning of this first part of the show, we've kind of taken a lighthearted look at it. But it's really very, very serious matter. Because, we mentioned there's between 65 and 70,000 students right here in New York City alone who graduated from over 450 high schools. And those young people are going through a tremendous transition. I call it the great transition, because it's something that can be very jarring to young people. I know everyone's excited. They're happy. I've graduated. I'm doing this or I want to do that, but they're frightened at the same time. As much excitement as there is around graduation, there's a lot of emotional insecurity for young people, no matter how confident they are. They're leaving people that they've been with basically their whole life, since the age of 4 or 5.
Right.
They're going off to places that they've never been before. There's no longer a network of people around them. And, I was reading something just the other day. The CDC says that 1 in 3 high school students is dealing with some sort of depression post-graduation, between graduating high school and going on to college. Now, it actually starts a bit in senior year for a lot of students.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that because what he mentioned earlier, when I went away to high school.
Yeah, oh, so,
I mean, like 1,800 miles away.
wow,
And so we lived together, went to school together, everything. The girls on one side, the boys on the other. It was like a castle. It's Hillcrest Lutheran Academy in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, that I went. Wait till you see those winters. I don't want you to. And today I'm still in touch with them from high school, and especially after graduation.
yeah.
You know, because we got so close. You were right. You get close, and then when you have that, and then when they leave, I saw some of them get sad. They didn't want it to end.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good point. And in smaller communities, there's, you know, you tend to bond and stay in touch with people more easily. You know, of course, today with the internet and the phones and all, it's much easier. But there's an emotional component to it. You know, we
Right.
talk about New York City, and the schools are so important, and parents, you play such a crucial role at this time. We have to remember that, and for all the graduates out there, forgive me, I say this with love, they're still children. They're 17, 18 years old. They're not adults, full adults yet. They still need our support. They need for them to know that we're supporting them still, and that there's a void in their lives.
Right.
There's a void, and this is one of the things that, you know, we're going to talk about. How can we, you know, help our children get through this? You know, we've invested all this time and money from grades, you know, pre-K through 12, and the obligation doesn't end there.
Right.
It's very important. You know, you might be sending your child off to a prestigious university or a local school or you know, someplace, you know, far away like Peter went. They still need our support. While we want them to, you know, get on their own, and they will, this is a crucial time between graduation and getting to the next step.
Right. And
These months are crucial, Peter.
here, like you said, they're very serious issues, and I understand that in 2021, the New York Times best-selling author, Alina Adams, published an article you wrote on this very subject in New York City. And School Talk magazine was just re-released, I hope I'm got the right,
Yes.
by Dr. Harold
Reitman.
Reitman in differentbrains.org magazine.
Yes, Alina Adams she's the foremost expert on schools in New York City. She's a New York Times best-selling author. She now can be reached she writes mostly for the magazine 74. You can look it up online.
Wow.
We published this article because I'd spoken and it said, you know, no one really talks about what happens after, you know, all the balloons are gone and, you know, the cake is finished and all the autographs have been signed in the yearbook. What happens to kids between then and the time school starts? I know for myself, there was such a void after graduating high school. I was so sad because I had the blessing to go back and, you know, teach at my alma mater. And I'm still in touch till this day with so many students there. But it's a void. You're not sure. Even
Right.
if you have a plan, you're not sure, you know, because you're a young person.
Right.
You
Right,
know, you're a
right.
young person. You haven't traversed the things that are coming your way yet. I'm going to ask our parents out there, look and be aware of the fact that your child no longer has the guidance and structure that they once have. There's an amount of uncertainty. They have separation anxiety, relationship changes. These are things that are very important for you to look at. So how can you help them? Sit down and have a conversation and say, you know, I'm so happy you're going here, you're going there. What plan do we have to make sure that, you know, who are you staying in touch with? You can address these things in just a very nice conversation, because these are important. You don't want your child to feel that they're alone, that all the people they've been with for the last 10 years are no longer in their life. They are. And so if you sit down and ask about a plan, are you staying in touch with this one? Are you joining a new club at school? Talk about the new things that they can do also. So a little bit of foot in the past and a little bit of foot in the future will
Right.
give our students a good place to wind up come September, which is really important for them, so they don't suffer this, what do I do, this overwhelming stuff.
Exactly. One more thing. I'd like you to talk to the student out there that says, okay, I'm graduating, but I don't need to go to graduation. Just send me the diploma. What would you tell that student?
Well, I'd say go to graduation. See the people you've been with. Experience it. You might have a reason you don't want to go, but you were an important part of that graduating class, whether you know it or not. You were a part of it, and you belong there. Go and take your part.
You got it right now from the maestro. Go. You are part of that. Experience it. It's something you will never forget. And he
Absolutely.
guarantees it. And so do I, because it's a memory I'll never forget.
You're more important than you think.
There
You're
you
more
go.
important than you think.
There you go.
People remember us.
That's right. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this just as much as I did. See you next time. God bless.